I never expected my world to change when a black waitress signed to my mute daughter. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The diner was usually the same, clattering plates, sizzling grills, the scent of greasy fries hanging heavy in the air. But that day, it was different. My heart raced as I watched my daughter, Lily, sitting at our usual booth. Her small hands trembled, a nervous habit that had developed since she learned to navigate a world of silence. Those innocent blue eyes, so full of hope, darted around, searching for something. Hope. Connection. But nothing came. A lump formed in my throat. I could feel the weight of her frustration. Then she walked in. The waitress. A striking woman, with deep skin that glimmered in the fluorescent light like polished mahogany. But it wasn't just her beauty that caught my attention. It was the way she carried herself, confident, unyielding. She glanced at Lily and my heart skipped a beat. Their eyes met. What happened next was surreal. In a flash, the waitress signed something to Lily. My mind swirled. I had never seen anyone sign before. It felt electric. I leaned in, straining to hear the silence that wrapped around us like a shroud. Did Lily understand? I could feel the heat rise to my cheeks, the tension crackle in the air. Lily's eyes widened. A flicker of recognition. Hope. My heart swelled. I recalled her first day at school, the whispers from classmates like daggers, the pitying looks. Poor girl, she can't even speak. I fought to keep my own tears at bay. But there was something about the waitress, something magnetic. She had seen my daughter, really seen her. And in that moment, I realized, this woman was more than a server, she was a bridge. As the waitress continued to sign, the clinking of cutlery faded into the background. The world around us blurred. I caught snippets of Lily's laughter. It felt like music I thought I would never hear again. Warmth spread through my chest, a lifeline in a turbulent sea. But just as quickly, the moment shattered. A woman's shrill voice pierced through the diner. What is she doing? You can't just talk to her like that. Shock rippled through the crowd. Murmurs erupted, confusion, disdain. My heart sank. Hands clenched into fists. Who was this woman to judge? How could they not understand? The waitress stood tall, unflinching. I admired her strength but felt the cruel weight of judgment pressing down. I was desperate to protect Lily, desperate to shield her from the ugly realities of the world. But as I looked into Lily's eyes, brimming with newfound hope, I also felt something else, fear. What if this hope was fleeting? Then, just before the waitress turned away, she whispered something to Lily. A secret? A promise? I held my breath as her fingers danced. But in a heartbeat, the moment was gone. Silence returned, heavy and suffocating. Questions flooded my mind. Could this woman be our answer? Would we finally find a way to connect? I glanced at Lily, her face radiant with something I hadn't seen in years. And just like that, the scent of fries, the chatter, the disapproving stares faded into the background. I felt my heart race again, pumping uncertainty through my veins that I needed to know what came next. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to leap, but with no idea what awaited below. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The following week was a whirlwind of emotions, a chaotic blend of hope and despair. Every day, I found myself returning to that diner, drawn like a moth to the flame of possibility. Each visit, I would scan the room for her, the waitress who had ignited something in Lily. But as the days slipped by, I eventually began to worry. What if I never saw her again? What if it had been a fleeting moment, a glimmer of light extinguished just as quickly as it had appeared? Lily clung to the memory of their encounter, her little fingers mimicking the signs she had watched. At first, I was apprehensive about her attempts, worried she might stumble over the signs like a child learning to walk. But then I saw a spark in her eyes whenever she practiced. Each new sign made her grin wider, a bright constellation of hope. She was trying to communicate, to break free from the prison of silence that had bound her for so long, and I couldn't help but swell with pride. One evening, while we were at the diner, I noticed the nervous way the other patrons glanced at Lily. A mother with 2 children whispered to her friends, stealing glances. I held my breath, bracing myself for the inevitable hurtful comments. But then, from the other side of the room, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure. The waitress. Her hair looked even more radiant under the stark light, and this time, she approached us with an air of confidence that made my heart race. "Hey there," she said brightly, her eyes locking onto Lily. "I'm so glad to see you again." Lily's face lit up. The waitress gestured, asking if she remembered the signs they practiced. Unhesitating, Lily nodded, her fingers deftly crafting shapes in the air. I could sense the connection forming, fragile yet exhilarating, like the first shoots of spring breaking through the last remnants of winter. But as their moment unfolded, a tense atmosphere enveloped the diner. The woman from last week, fueled by her own prejudice, sat across the room, scrutinizing our every move like a hawk watching its prey. I felt a surge of protectiveness for Lily, anger blooming in my chest. I whispered to the waitress, "She's not a bad person." Just confused, the waitress shot me a look of understanding, her presence exuding calmness. You never know what someone is dealing with. Sometimes, people lash out because they feel threatened. It was true, but at that moment, I could hardly see it as an excuse for her behavior. My heart still beat wildly for Lily. She was fragile and innocent, too pure to be prey in someone else's misunderstanding. As if sensing my turmoil, the waitress leaned closer, her voice low. "You are doing wonderfully." "And so is she." Lily, engrossed in the interaction, paused for a moment, her brows knitting in concentration. She turned to the waitress, her fingers flying in a flurry of signs, while the waitress struggled to catch every word. And right then, I felt the stirring of hope again, but the nagging knot in my stomach tightened when I glanced at the woman across the diner. The realization hit me hard as I saw her reach for her cell phone, seemingly ready to capture the scene unfolding at our table. My breath hitched in my throat. What would she do with it? Would she circulate our moment, attempting to shatter this fragile connection I was desperate to protect? "Mom?" Lily's voice trembled, pulling me from the storm of my thoughts. "Yes, sweetheart, will you help me sign?" It was a request that felt heavy with weight. My heart twisted at the idea that she would continue to require help, a bittersweet reminder of the struggles we faced. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat, and picked up a piece of paper. Together, we began to form the words, one sign at a time. With every movement, Lily's confidence grew, and I found myself embracing the moment rather than fearing what lay ahead, but the looming specter of judgment still hung in the air. As our connection deepened, so did my anxiety about the world outside the diner's walls. Would they allow her to shine? Or would they continue to cast shadows of doubt and confusion? Then, the woman stood, her voice cutting through the lively chatter. "People are staring at you for a reason," she blurted, puncturing our bubble. "You think you can change anything here?" My heart dropped, holding its breath. The diner fell silent, all eyes turning towards us. I could feel the weight of judgment pressing down as I locked eyes with Lily. Would she retreat into silence, back into the shadows, or would she find the courage to push through? And just as the situation reached its peak, the waitress turned sharply, her expression fierce yet luminous. "You have no idea the impact you can have on this world," she declared. "Kindness is powerful." "What is your name?" The woman stared, taken aback, and for a moment, it felt like the weight of her cruelty might be lifted. But then, my heart nearly stopped as I heard the unmistakable sound of shattering glass behind me. A crash echoed, leaving a cavernous silence in its wake. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach as I caught the sight of a glass falling from another table shattered, like the fragile moment we had tried to create. In that split second, I realized that our reality could be just as easily fragmented. And as the weight of uncertainty crashed back down, I felt the terrifying truth whispering in the back of my mind: this was far from over. Every day at the diner felt like a tightrope walk between hope and devastation. As I returned to our usual booth, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the syrupy sweetness of pancakes, the flickering fluorescent lights overhead reminded me that beneath it all, nothing truly felt stable. I watched Lily doodle in her notebook, a familiar surrender to distraction, her little tongue poking out in concentration as she crafted stories no one would ever hear. "Mom," she looked up suddenly, eyes bright with innocence. "Can we practice more signs today? I want to show her everything." My heart soared, but the weight of uncertainty loomed over us. "Of course, sweetheart," I replied, forcing a smile despite the apprehension gripping my throat. "Well, practice our best ones." As if summoned by fate, the waitress appeared, her aura warm and inviting. "Good morning. I see my favorite student is back today," she said, bending down to meet Lily's gaze. Lily beamed at the compliment, and as our shared language began to pulse with life between them, I found my worries momentarily soothed. The tenderness of their interaction pushed back against the clamor of judgment I had felt each time we entered the diner. But then it came the unmistakable chill of unease. I had noticed the same mother from before, now seated at the counter, her eyes fixed on us as she whispered furiously to her friend. With every gesture Lily made, I felt the tightening vice of scrutiny around my heart. I wanted to shield her from that judgment, I wanted to scream at the ignorance they harbored. "Lily, remember what I taught you about using your voice?" I whispered, desperately needing her to shine even brighter. "I will, Mom," she promised, her tiny fists clenched with determination, but as the waitress left to refill coffee mugs, the tension in the air thickened. The woman from across the diner braced herself, rose from her seat, and lumbered our way, her shadow casting an ominous pall over our table. "Why are you letting her act like this?" she spat, her voice dripping with disdain. "Do you think she'll be understood like this?" I opened my mouth, words stuttered in a futile effort to counter the venom she spewed. "Lily is," but the waitress returned just in time, laying her hand softly on my shoulder, grounding me. "The only thing that matters is what she feels inside. She is beautiful just as she is." For a moment, the woman faltered, confusion flickering across her face. Yet, within her uncertainty, I sensed that she was nothing more than a reflection of the walls we all faced, unyielding, rigid, and often made vulnerable only by kindness. "Are you saying it's okay for her to embarrass everybody?" the woman continued, but I could see the cracks of her perception begin to splinter. Before I could object, Lily caught my gaze and took a deep breath. I can do this," she whispered to me, her fingers already forming the sign for more. The hush that swept over the diner felt electrifying. So much was riding on this moment, and I knew I had to give her the freedom to fall or to soar. "Just be brave, my love," I whispered, willing her with all my being to take this leap. Slowly, she turned to face the mother with fierce resolve. "More," she signed, her movements full of grace, her expression radiant and defiant. It was an assertion that seemed to dare the world to listen, to accept the sweet essence of who she was. The waitress nodded in encouragement, whispering, "That's it, keep going." Yet, before Lily could find her rhythm, the mother's face twisted in indignation. "It's not enough. You need to learn how to speak properly." Her spat words slashed through the diner, drawing stares and hurt whispers. An icy grip clenched around my heart as my stomach flipped helplessly, but as I went to reach for Lily, a small hand gripped mine. I looked down to find the waitress had squeezed my palm gently, a silent pledge of solidarity amidst the chaos. "They will see her light," she reassured softly. And in that moment, my phone buzzed violently on the table. A message from work, an urgent reminder that I had missed a deadline, a collision of my responsibilities and my mission to protect Lily colliding in heartache and regret. I blinked rapidly, unable to focus on both the chaos outside and the beauty unfolding before me. I glanced at Lily, whose lips trembled, sinuous signs still hanging in the air, fumbling between courage and doubt, a precarious line she was threading. Just as I was about to reassure her, an unexpected roar of laughter erupted from the other end of the diner, shattering the tension. A group of young men, clearly intoxicated, were mocking someone at another table, echoing the sentiments tossed our way. It was as if their taunts were a storm ready to unleash terror. My breath hitched, and I turned back to face the woman. The moment she saw the direction of my stare, her resolve crumbled slightly more. "What's wrong with you people?" she rasped, her cowardice laid bare. Meanwhile, Lily's fingers faltered mid-sign, hesitation creeping back into her demeanor. I felt my heart crack. Could the tiny bridge we had begun to build really withstand this onslaught of emotion, misunderstanding, and anger? Then the waitress took a bold step forward. "What you see is so much more than a moment of awkwardness. What you're witnessing is a fierce, unyielding love that should be celebrated." But just as the words took hold, another crash sounded from somewhere near the counter, nearly drowning us all out that I didn't need to turn around to know it was bad. I saw the look of disbelief on the waitress's face, the flash of concern in her eyes. My nightmares danced in front of me, and I could feel the fracture lines of our brief solace splitting yet again. In that blinding moment of chaos, a new voice rang out, piercing through the tension with a revelation that shocked me to my core. "Mom, did you notice the newspaper today? They're featuring us." I looked down, barely registering Lily's statement, my heart racing as panic seemed to weave its way into the very fabric of our reality. "Us?" I whispered, heart pounding with dread, and then I heard the barista, an unexpected bystander, laughing at the code in Lily's sign, translating it with delight to the restaurant. "Look at the way she mesmerizes. This little girl is changing the game." With every hint of support, fragments of hope pushed back against the encroaching shadows, and a new heart-stopping dilemma began to take shape. What would happen now? Would the world embrace her, or would this newfound light become our ruin? All while outside of ourselves, the servers began to gather, forming a spirit of solidarity I had never expected. And as voices began to rise in a chorus for kindness, I knew we were spiraling into something irretrievably beautiful and terrifyingly unknown. The clamor within the diner mingled with my racing heartbeat, an almost hypnotic rhythm overshadowed by the overwhelming anticipation of what this sudden attention would mean for Lily. As the barista echoed the warmth inherent in her words, I felt the gaze of the woman who had confronted us shift, her stare now vacillating between confusion and a dawning respect. Could it be that kindness was finally piercing through the walls of her prejudice? As the din of laughter and conversation around us began to spread, it was as if the air shimmered with something new, a fragile sensation of unity that I had doubted could ever exist in our gritty reality. But the echoes of that judgment still loomed near, and the tightness in my chest felt painfully familiar. "Mom, did you see? They're cheering for me," Lily squeaked, her voice a melody amidst the chaos, and for the first time, hope intertwined with my fear, threading through my muscles and making it easier to breathe. I turned to face her, an elated grin spreading across my face. "I see you, my love. You're amazing." My words wrapped around her like a protective cocoon, and I felt the tension we had endured begin to melt away, even if just a little. "Keep going. Show them everything," came the incessant encouragement from the waitress, her voice rising above the tide of voices. Something in her tone was raw with emotion, as if she too resurrected a long-buried dream of acceptance, not just for Lily, but for the diversity that filled this small town with vibrancy and struggle alike. "More." Lily signed again, vibrant with determination, her fingers dancing wide and fluid like an exquisite ballet of expression that filled the diner with a sense of wonder. Despite the fear nudging at the edge of my thoughts, I dared to hope that perhaps the darkness could be eclipsed by the brilliance of her spirit. Yet, with the rising tide of applause and amazement, flickers of uncertainty brushed against my heart. What if this moment was fleeting? What if, when the bravado faded, the harsh truths waiting outside once again claimed her? Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed movement, a figure weaving their way through the crowd. My breath hitched as recognition crashed over me. It was Rebecca, an old friend I had lost touch with, who used to sit at our booth sharing dreams and plans before life had pulled us in different directions. She was all but a ghost in my past, a relic of more joyful times. As she approached, I could see the flicker of recognition transform into warmth as she spotted Lily. "Oh my God, is that you, Lily?" she exclaimed, a genuine excitement saturating her voice. Her gaze moved past me, landing on my daughter with a dazzling sense of admiration. "You've grown up. I've heard so much about you." Lily's shy smile radiated like sunlight breaking through the clouds. "Thank you," she signed, and for a moment, all uncertainty was illuminated. Rebecca knelt beside our booth, her warmth infectious as she reached out to Lily. "Can you teach me to sign?" she asked, her enthusiasm evident as she gestured eagerly. Lily, her confidence surging, nodded emphatically. "Yes." She signed, her eyes sparkling with newfound joy, alive in a world that felt momentarily transformed. While they immersed themselves in what seemed like a magical language exchange, my heart warmed as if a forgotten part of me was being rediscovered. Yet, amidst the reunion bubbling with laughter and joy, a creeping thought wormed its way into my mind. Could all this attentiveness turn bittersweet? Years of familiar heartache came crashing back, whispers of doubt echoing through me. I glanced around the diner at the patrons. Some watched with expressions of approval, while others still bore the remnants of scorn, clearly unimpressed. Anxiety returned like an uninvited guest, rearing its head again. The juxtaposition of support and judgment left me inwardly trembling, an ocean of emotion crashing over me. Then, just as the atmosphere seemed to glow with possibilities, the door swung open with a resounding clang. A chill raced through the diner as I turned. To see a tall man enter, his face pinched in annoyance, eyes scanning the scene with an almost predatory focus. "What's going on here?" he barked, his voice cutting through the tender moment like a fresh wound. The sudden shift in energy was palpable, the laughter extinguished, leaving a gaping silence in its wake. My stomach knotted tightly, and I instinctively reached for Lily's hand, the warmth of her fingers grounding me in that swirling storm of apprehension. The man strode closer, seeming out of place among the soft-hearted gathering. "This isn't a circus," he sneered, directing his gaze toward Lily, now questioning everything we had just begun to build. I felt the breath hitching painfully in my throat, dread swirling as the protective instincts flared wildly through me. What would he say next? The balance we had momentarily established teetered precariously on the brink of chaos. "We're just celebrating," the waitress said, with a strength that echoed through the din of uncertainty, her fierce gaze holding the man at bay. "We're celebrating bravery, kindness, and the beauty of being who you are." But he wasn't finished. Stepping closer, he leaned forward and locked his eyes with mine, an icy resolve setting his features. "Is this what you want for your daughter? To humiliate herself in front of everyone?" The words pierced through my chest like daggers, and in that moment, my world felt as if it teetered towards an inevitable collapse. As the warmth of connection ignited moments before flickered dimly, the shadows lurked ever closer, waiting to extinguish the light. And yet, amidst the uncertainty raging around us, I felt a shift in Lily. She leaned closer to me, unwavering in her defiance. "I am here," she signed, her expression steeped in resolve, a visual declaration of identity amidst the gathering storm. I took a deep breath, clutching her hand tightly, ready to fight. Would it be enough to ward off the impending storm? Or were we about to be eclipsed again? The world outside came crashing toward us, and I was left dangling on the precipice, asking myself one question: could our tiniest spark withstand the darkness trying to snuff it out? With that tension hanging thick in the air, I knew we had crossed a threshold from which there was no returning, no matter which direction we would fall. The chill in the air seemed to seep into my bones as the tall man's eyes bore into mine, a storm brewing within his gaze. The strength of the diner, filled just moments ago with laughter and celebration, felt teetering on a knife's edge. Lily's small fingers remained tightly wrapped around mine, a reminder of her presence and the fight we shared. The waitress' voice rang out again, steady, fierce, and filled with conviction. "You don't have to understand, but this is important for us." "For her?" His sneer deepened as he processed her words. "Important? You think this is important?" He scoffed, shaking his head. "You're just making a mockery of her, pushing her to perform for your amusement. You're setting her up for failure." The hurt in his words echoed like a bitter echo, and my heart clenched at the thought that any fragment of truth lay hidden within the venom he spat. But I couldn't let doubt creep in, I couldn't falter now. Not in front of Lily. A hush had fallen over the remaining diner patrons, eyes darting between us and the confrontation that was quickly becoming unbearable. Rebecca's earlier warmth melted into an aura of concern, her expression wide and worried as she glanced between the three of us. It felt like the weight of their fears pressed down on Meth, fear of humiliation, of judgment, of losing the small moment of hope we had just begun to cherish. "Listen," I said suddenly, my voice louder than I intended. "My daughter is not a mockery. She is beautiful just as she is. Her strength, her voice ice real, and it matters." Lily, emboldened by my words, signed emphatically, "I am me." Her declaration shimmered in the tense atmosphere, carving a path through the oppressive doubt. I watched as she pulled herself taller, bravely standing in the truth of her own identity, but the man was undeterred. "What happens when she fails, huh? When you're not around? You think the world will embrace her? It will tear her down, make her doubt herself." His voice was harsh, a stark reminder of every pain we had worked so hard to rise above. "What do you know about her?" I shot back, my heart racing. "You don't know her journey, the battles she's fought to be who she is. You've no idea how many people stand with her, stand for her." But just then, a tremor of fear flickered in Lily's eyes. Was it the truth of his words sinking in? The self-doubt I had tried to keep tethered deep inside me threatened to rear its ugly head. Could I protect her from the world's harshness? Before I could react, the waitress stepped in closer again. "You don't get to dictate who she is or how much she matters," she spat fiercely, her nearly glowing spirit battling fiercely against the tides of negativity. "You know why we celebrate? Because for too long, people like her have been silenced. And we won't let that happen anymore." The man's face reddened in response, a mix of rage and confusion flaring within him as he stood a little taller, seeming to absorb the united front of defiance standing before him. Witnessing such bravery ignited a spark within me. If the waitress could find strength in the face of prejudice, then so could I. But as I planted my feet steady on the ground, preparing for whatever would come next, I caught a movement through the window, the stray, unsettling image of another figure standing outside, a woman who, despite the distance, felt eerily familiar. The sight sent chills running down my spine, freezing me momentarily. She met my gaze through the glass, her expression unreadable but intense, her dark curls framing a face that once haunted my dreams. It was Mia, my estranged sister, the very person I never thought would set foot here again. The last time we faced each other was like a chasm had opened between us, her abandonment twisting like a knife in my heart. "Mom." Lily's voice broke through my haze, and I turned back to her, realizing the weight of the confrontation was still heavy in the air. Desperation flared within me, a moment of vulnerability where my armor felt distinctly fragile. With Lily by my side, I oriented myself back to the man. "You're right about one thing, the world can be a harsh place." I took a deep breath, pulling in the strength from the connections we'd been building, not just from the people around us but also from deep within. "But she is worth fighting for, and we'll find our way no matter what obstacles stand in our path." The man's stance flickered, but I could sense the fight was not yet over. I turned half a breath away from him, my gaze darting back to Mia, a constellation of emotions colliding as old wounds threatened to reopen. And then, amidst the turmoil of that moment, the truth of my fears collided with an unexpected flicker of hope. Instead of crumpling before the weight of his words or the surprise of my sister's reappearance, I recognized the urgency of our fight. I was left hanging as uncertainty swirled within, battling against the fleeting sense of possibility. With the din of voices returning slowly behind me, the air crackling with anticipation, I saw the cascade of choices unfurl before us. In that moment, all I could think was, would this confrontation shatter our growing resolve? Or would it ultimately spark the resurgence of unity and hope that we so desperately sought? The moment held its breath, a fragile lull hanging in the air. Lily's fingers tightened around mine, a plea for strength that radiated through our connection. The waitress's fierce determination bathed us in a warmth that felt like an anchor, while the silhouette of Mia loomed outside, a shadow from a past I had thought long buried. "Mom. Who's that?" Lily's voice, childlike and curious, broke the spell, drawing my gaze once more to my sister. I felt the world narrow down to just her, the beat of my heart matching the cadence of my memories. Mia, dressed in dark layers as if in protest against the brightness of the diner, stood with arms folded, her expression unreadable. The last conversation we shared had felt like an adage of silent resentment tangled in unspoken words, each laden with years of distance and disappointment. Seeing her now, it was as though the years hadn't melted away but froze like ice crystals, waiting for a warmth to break the stillness. The man continued to glare, fixated on us as though our existence was an affront to him. "You should just walk away," he snapped to Mia, dismissive and rude. "This is not your fight." The waitress stepped closer to protect us, but Mia raised a hand in a gesture of peace, a flicker of determination igniting her features. "I think it may be my fight too," she said quietly but firmly, a hint of her old spirit surfacing. "I'm here now, and I won't let hatred dictate the narrative." With her words hung in the air, a tiny ember of hope flared within me, even as turmoil twisted in my gut. Could she really be here for us? For Lily? Part of me wanted to rush to her, to dissolve the emptiness that had persisted between us for so long. But another part wondered if the wound of our past was too raw, too deep, to heal even with her presence. Lily's eyes sparkled with growing hope as she watched the exchange, that unmistakable radiance lighting her face. Momentarily, she had forgotten the man's harsh words. Her spirit was like a tender plant, stretching toward sunlight, needing only the warmth of encouragement to thrive. Mia took another cautious step toward us, challenging the hostility swirling around. "I know it's complicated, but I'm here now. I don't want to be the sister who turned away. I want to help," but the man scoffed, crossing his arms defiantly. "Help? You're nothing but a coward who left when it mattered most." His voice dripped disdain, cutting through the tender moment. I turned to face him, feeling the heat of anger rise within me. "How do you measure the worth of anyone's journey? By the mistakes they've made? We've all strayed, we've all fought." The swell of voices grew stronger behind me. "Mia left, but she's willing to return. Isn't that a sign of courage? Can't you see how love still seeks to bridge the gaps?" For a split second, the man hesitated, as if my words struck a muted chord in him. But self-righteousness gripped him tightly, and I felt the tension in my chest rise, my desperation pouring out in steady breaths. Lily pulled at my hand, her focus steady on her aunt, her innocence circumventing the weight of adult wounds. "Aunt Mia," she signed, brightening. "Come sit. It's okay." The simplicity of that gesture curled in a magic that sparked something inside me. Mia's eyes softened, and for a moment, the hardness of her past crumbled. She stepped forward with cautious resolve, her gaze darting nervously between Lily and me and the man who loomed near. But the man took a step closer, his tone low and ominous. "You think you can just waltz back in and make amends? It doesn't work that way. The world is not kind to the weak." I could feel the collective breath of the diner, anchored by the waitress, the patrons, everyone witnessing what felt like an altar of long-buried secrets being unearthed. And then, something in me snapped. "Stop it!" I shouted, and the echo of my voice startled even me. "You don't get to define what she is or isn't worth. None of us are weak for standing together." Those words resonated, bouncing back and forth, stirring a fire inside me that refused to dim. Hope was not a distant, flickering flame, it was a raging bonfire that needed kindling. But just as I felt that fire ignite, Mia's hesitance struck a chord of fear within me. I sensed a hesitation, a doubt, only cemented when I caught the way she shared a fraught look with the man, an understanding flickering between them that set my heart racing. "Is he?" My voice faltered, but I pressed on. "Is he someone you know, Mia? Someone from your past?" The intensity of her gaze broke for a heartbeat, and I could practically hear the echoes of buried memories colliding with the life we were trying to build. The very air thickened as the truth hung around us, waiting to be disclosed, waiting to decide our collective fate. MIA's silence stretched, heavy and fraught. The tension was palpable, the reverberations of raw emotions morphing into an eruption of unexpected revelations. And just like that, as we stood surrounded by the ghosts of our pasts, I realized both our hope and our uncertainty spiraled together, waiting for the next moment to shift our destinies forever. The diner held its breath, a fragile equilibrium teetering on the edge of revelation. Mia stood there, caught between the shadows of her past and the bright light of possibility. The man's disdainful glare flickered as he sensed the shifting energy in the air, but I could see the confusion tugging at Mia's heart as she seemed to wrestle with herself. Is he someone you know, Mia? My voice trembled as I demanded an answer, the stakes impossibly high. Please, just tell us. Her lips pressed into a thin line, and in that moment, it was as if time folded in on itself. The years of silence and separation loomed large, but a small spark of vulnerability in her eyes told me she was only on the verge of saying something monumental. Lily looked from me to Mia, her unyielding belief in connection acting as a bridge over the vast chasm of unresolved hurt. Mia's breath was shaky as she glanced downwards, avoiding my gaze. He's someone from a long time ago, she finally whispered, a fragile sound that held an ocean of pain. Someone I tried to leave behind, someone who hurt me, hurting others to get back what was taken, or hurting yourself in the process. The man's voice sliced through her admission, bitterness laced within each syllable. His face was caught in a twisted mix of anger and mockery, and I realized he wasn't just a stranger accusing her, he was a representation of everything she had fought to escape. I stepped closer to Mia, feeling an inexplicable urge to shield her from his venom. You don't have to let him define you anymore, Mia. You're not that person anymore. You came back for Lily, you showed that you still care. The waitress, who had remained an unwavering presence, came to stand beside me. Her eyes sparkled with a fierce kindness, as if she understood the tangled emotions that bound us. Everyone has a story, she said softly, her hands gesturing fluidly as she signed to Lily. Each at their own crossroads. What matters is the choices we make from here. The words wrapped around me like a warm blanket, simple yet profound. I hoped Mia could hear them, grasping a sliver of hope amidst the brewing storm. Lily leaned in closer, searching Mia's eyes. You'll stay, right? We can be a family again, can't we? Tears sparkled in Mia's eyes, a mixture of anguish and newfound resolve. Lily, sweet girl, her voice softened, almost breaking under the weight of her emotions. I want to, but it's hard. I finished her thought, my voice steady, coaxing her to confront the wound that had festered for far too long. Then let's tackle it, together. There's still time. But the man wasn't finished. With a dark flourish, he leaped forward, locking eyes with Mia. You think you can undo the past? Some things can't be fixed. People don't change. Mia straightened, her expression shifting, shoulders squared as she turned to face him fully. Maybe not, she said firmly. But I'm ready to face it. Ready to be more than the mistakes I made. Each word was a step toward healing, courageous and defiant, and as she faced him, I couldn't help but feel pride surge within me. But the tension was suffocating, a time bomb of unsaid truths and potential disaster. The man's silence yawned, but inside his eyes, I recognized a storm brewing. Before I could register what happened, he lunged toward Mia, grabbing her wrist with a fierce grip. You think you can come back and ruin everything? Do you have any idea what you've put in motion? His eyes widened, a disturbing mixture of rage and desperation reflected within them. Lily yanked my hand hard, pulling me toward her. Daddy! She exclaimed with wide eyes, panic raising the pitch of her voice. Mia! I shouted, my heart racing like a freight train. In that moment of chaos, the waitress stepped forward, her heart echoing our urgency. With unwavering determination, she intervened, her body blocking Mia as she determinedly faced the man. This is not the place for your hatred. You can't control her life anymore. Tension crackled, filling the space with danger, teasing the balance between vulnerability and strength as they faced off. Suddenly, Mia pulled away from the man's grasp, and in the whirlwind of emotion, she managed to take a step back. My heart raced, waiting for her next move. "You don't get to decide my worth," she declared, fierce and audacious, "or whether I get to move forward," but as she spoke, I could see the anger flicker in the man's eyes transform into something darker, something primal that reverberated with the echoes of a past I feared we were all haunted by. Before I could catch my breath or imagine a way to step in, the strangest thing happened. A voice called from the back of the diner. "Is everything okay?" My heart dropped. It was another familiar voice, one I thought I had buried deep within the confines of my memories. I turned to the door, the reality of my world crashing down as I recognized the figure. James, the one person I thought I would never see again. He stood in the doorway, uncertainty painted on his face, shock rippling through the room as he surveyed the tension that pooled before him. Time stilled, and in that moment, two worlds collided, me past and present intertwining in an emotional fraught dance, poised on the brink of revelation. Everything I had fought to protect was now laid bare, and I knew that nothing would be the same again. The diner buzzed around us, an electric tension casting a heavy cloak over the room. My resentment simmered just beneath the surface, and so many emotions warred within me: relief, confusion, anger. I had shielded myself from this moment for so long, convinced James was a shadow best left behind. Yet there he stood, firmer and more real than I ever expected. Mia's expression mirrored my turmoil as she grappled with what the sudden appearance of James meant. Memories unfolded in a jumbled heap, a lifetime of choices leading up to this singular moment. She stepped back as if bolstered by an unseen force, eyes darting nervously between James and the man who encapsulated so much heartache. James the first heard her breathe, a whisper barely drifting through the din of clattering utensils and murmurs. "Is everyone all right?" James stepped deeper into the diner, worry etching lines into his brow. The sight of him stirred something within me, distant echoes of love and laughter fused with remorse and decisions long forgotten. "Why are you here?" The bitterness in the man's voice shattered the brief respite. He loomed larger, his presence drenching the air with tension, spilling unintended sparks. "You've always tied her down, haven't you? Leave her alone." James' voice soared, echoing the fierce protectiveness I remembered so vividly. The resolve that filled his tone sent a tremor through my body, awakening remnants of the past I thought I had buried. Mia hesitated, caught between the two men, James and the reminder of everything she was trying to escape. "I don't want this," she cried, the weight of her anguish reverberating within the small space. "I just want to be free from everything, to be with Lily." Suddenly, this gathered storm of emotion pulled in a new direction. The waitress, a freckled woman with warm eyes, stepped closer to Mia's side, offering silent solidarity. "You are free, but it's a journey, my friend. Don't let their shadows pull you back." Lily, blissfully unaware of the secret spiraling around her, leaned against Mia, offering her mother a glimpse of what unconditional love might look like. "I'm scared, Mommy," she uttered, her innocent voice cutting through the chaos, grounding us all. Mia's gaze softened, and in those fleeting seconds, I saw her hope intertwining with our daughter's unwavering faith. "I'm scared too, sweet girl, but we've made it this far. We can do this," she said, eyes shimmering with the ache of what could have been. James' presence became a volatile mix of anxiety and nostalgia. With every heartbeat, I was reversed back to our shared history. The warmth of our youthful dreams felt like an unwelcome nostalgia, a reminder of the heartaches we had lived through. "Why now, Mia?" he pressed gently, trying to break through her tumultuous thoughts. After all this time, a moment consumed the air. Mia's silence spoke volumes, a kaleidoscope of emotions dancing behind her eyes. She was tiptoeing on the precipice of revelation, hesitating to shine a light on past betrayals. "I had to come back," she paused, almost hesitant, "to face my fears, to be a mother to Lily and make things right." There, finally, laid the raw truth in all its stark vulnerability, and I saw the weight of years crackle around her like dry leaves stirring in the winds of autumn. But the man wouldn't allow this catharsis to unfold. He exploded with rage. "You think running away makes you untouchable? You'll never escape who you are." In that moment, something clicked for me. "Mia," I said softly, "maybe he's right. Perhaps escaping isn't the answer. But fighting against that's what can set you free." The atmosphere throbbing in the diner felt almost spiritual. In a tender gesture, I squeezed her hand, and in that washing tide of emotion, I realized that despite the raging chaos, the thread of hope stretched taut, fragile yet steadfast. Just as Mia seemed to gather her strength, a sharp intake of breath echoed from the back of the diner, jolting us from the crucible of confrontation. A young woman in a simple black dress stood at the entrance. The unmistakable quiet dignity in her posture and the anxious glimmer in her eyes set her apart. "Mia," she called, breaking like a wave against the rocks. "I've been searching for you." Mia's face drained of color as if her past had just reached out to claim her. What do you mean?" The newcomer blinked back tears, confusion wrapping her like a shroud of uncertainty. "I didn't know how else to find you. I saw the photo from before," she stammered. "I wanted you to know there were things I was never able to say." Mia recoiled slightly, torn between fear and curiosity as she processed this unexpected revelation. The air around us evolved, transforming into a thick fog of uncertainty. A potent silence stretched constantly, a melody of unresolved tension reverberating among us, setting the stage for a revelation neither of us anticipated. As the new arrival stepped forward, the man's grip on Mia's past tightened, and I was left to wonder what hidden wounds would be unearthed and which painful truths would come clawing back to the surface. In that moment, I knew that our tangled web of lives was about to unravel in ways we could never have predicted, and the foundations of what we once thought we understood about ourselves would be forever altered. The air thickened as the woman in black moved closer, her trembling hands reaching out with an urgency that seemed to envelop Mia in a shroud of memories unbidden. Each step she took echoed in the silence as if announcing the arrival of a storm. "Who are you?" Mia's voice quivered, a mixture of anxiety and intrigue playing silently over her features. The curdling tension made my heart race, prompting me to instinctively move closer to Mia and Lily, desperate to shield them from whatever revelation was bearing down on us. The woman hesitated, gathering her thoughts like scattered leaves. "I'm Clara," she stammered, her eyes darting between Mia and the little girl holding tightly to her mother's leg, still blissfully unaware of the brewing tempest. "We grew up together. I didn't know how to find you after everything after you left." Mia's face paled, and her breath hitched in her throat as if she had just been submerged in icy water. "You had to know I was gone. I thought you'd moved on. I never meant for things to end like this." Clara's gaze dropped, her voice trembling. "We tried to find you. You were so important to all of us, and when you disappeared, it felt like a piece of the world went missing. I had to know you were okay." Suddenly, a flicker of connection bridged the gap between them. A pang of nostalgia rippled through the diner, forcing the room to remember the bonds forged in youth, laughter shared amid dreams that had long since faded. I could feel the stirrings of a past I did not know, haunting and beautiful, unfolding in the tender words exchanged in that charged atmosphere. "Why are you here now?" Mia's voice was barely a whisper, laden with vulnerability. "What else could you possibly have to say that I haven't already left behind?" Because there's more you need to hear," Clara pressed on, her eyes shining with unexpected warmth as they locked onto Lily. "You weren't just running away from your past, Mia, you were escaping something darker, something that was closing in around you." The tension thickened further, and the shadows in the diner felt alive, breathing with the weight of unspoken truths. My heart sank as the realization dawned upon me. Clara held keys to a locked door buried deep in Mia's past, a door I knew had no simple answer. "Mommy." Lily tugged at Mia's arm, her brows crinkled in confusion as she took in the emotion swirling around us. "Why is she sad? Can I help?" The innocent compassion radiating from our daughter pierced through the gloom like a beam of light that I saw hope spark briefly in Mia's eyes. It was that flicker I had longed for, even as clouds lingered, threatening to shroud us anew. "You always make everything okay, Lily," she whispered, kneeling down to envelop our daughter in her arms. The diner fell into a surreal hush, momentarily suspended in a single heartbeat. The clinking of plates and the chatter of customers faded away, leaving us adrift in this moment of clarity where the past, present, and future seemed to collide. Clara stepped forward, voice steadied with resolve. "Mia, it's time to face what happened after you left. There's someone you need to know about, a part of our story that's still hidden away." Each word she uttered sent tremors through me, amplifying an incoherent mixture of dread and disbelief. The connection within our narratives felt like a tidal wave building outside, ready to crash down and swallow us whole. "Mia, you deserve to know the truth," Clara continued softly, brimming with earnest sincerity. "There was so much more than you realized. I didn't know how to tell you before, but, you have a sister, Mia. And she's been searching for you." Time stuttered. For a moment, the realization spun through the static air, wrapping all of us in disbelief. The edges of my vision darkened as if the floodgates of Mia's trauma were about to unravel. Off to my side, I could see James' face twisting into one of shock, and even the man who loomed like a specter faltered, slack-jawed as emotions erupted around us like popcorn kernels in a hot pan. "A sister?" Mia echoed, her voice hitting a crystalline pitch that fractured with suppressed sobs. How could I not know? There it was, the jagged wound that had never quite healed, now thrust open by Clara's revelation, spilling out all the tangled threads of a life half-lived. The storm inside Mia swirled chaotically, tossing memories like scattered leaves dancing in a whirlwind of unspoken words and regrets. "Wait, please," I implored, not knowing how to steady the turmoil brewing around us. "Mia, what does this mean? What are we on the brink of discovering?" In that fractured moment, something in the universe lurched, shifting the landscape of our lives irrevocably. Mia stood, a stunning reflection of raw determination mixed with pure fear. "I need to know what's been kept from me," she declared, her voice fierce amidst the accusatory shadows that continued to encircle us. "I have to face my past no matter what it brings." As she took a step forward, searching for the resolution that had always eluded her, I reached out instinctively. But where once stood the fragile thread of familial bonds, now loomed the haunting uncertainty of a future bound by secrets, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. With Clara's revelation hanging like a pendulum above our heads, I realized we stood on the brink of an uncharted abyss, where each step could either lift us or plunge us into depths we were not prepared for, an absolute precipice of transformation. And as I searched Mia's resolute gaze, I couldn't help but wonder what else lay buried in the shadows of the past waiting to rise. The world shifted around me, teetering at the brink of revelation, all eyes in the diner focused on us. I could feel the collective breath held, every whispered judgment and muted gasp merging into a single, pulsating silence. The truth hung heavy in the air, suffused with both dread and a strange sense of inevitability. This was the culminating moment, the point where our paths converged, and where secrets veiled in silence were about to thrash free. Mia's voice, shaken yet firm, cut through the silence. "Clara, I need to know everything." Her words were a fragile declaration, laden with years of pain and uncertainty. The light in her eyes was bright, emboldened by the realization that perhaps, just perhaps, this darkness didn't have to overshadow her. Clara nodded, the understanding passing between them almost palpable. "You remember the weekend we went to your grandmother's, right? Before everything fell apart." My heart raced as Clara continued, weaving through a memory I had never been privy to. "It was then we found out your mother was pregnant just days after you left. You thought you were leaving everything behind to protect us, but you didn't know we were only beginning our own fight." Mia stood still, processing, each word revealing fragments of a past she had tried to escape but never truly left behind. I thought I was the only one struggling." Her voice trembled. "I never knew. I didn't choose to walk away." The truth was a cascade, dripping slowly into her consciousness, twisting emotions long buried into a pulsating reality. "Your sister," Clara said, softly fixing her gaze on Mia. "Her name is Alice. She has been searching for you. She wants to meet you." The room shivered with the weight of the unspoken bond. A sister. Mia's sister. But I wasn't there for her. "It's my fault." Mia's voice burst forth. "How could I face her? I'm no one's savior, I can't fix the past. Maybe you don't need to fix it, I interjected, sensing the familiar swirl of panic that loomed in her expression. It's not about undoing what's already been done. It's about forging a new path together. The soft, steadying tone of my words clung to the air like an anchor, attempting to ground us amidst the swirling chaos. Lily, still nestled beside Mia, broke the rising tension with her innocent light. Can I meet her too? I want an adventure with my new aunt, she signed with a giddy excitement, an untainted enthusiasm that contrasted sharply against the gravity of our circumstances. Mia looked down at her daughter, and I saw hope tugging at the corners of her mouth. You're right, sweet girl. We could all have an adventure, she whispered, a tremor of resolve blooming in her tone. For the first time, she looked like someone ready to step into the light, ready to fight not just for herself but for the family she thought she had lost, but the man, still looming too close for comfort, snarled, "This is a pathetic charade. You can't escape what you've done. Your sister's pain is written all over your legacy." His voice was like a stone hurled into our newfound clarity, the harshness impossible to ignore. Enough. The refrain came from the waitress, who, like a fierce guardian, stepped between him and Mia. You don't get to define anyone's legacy. You don't get to decide who matters and who doesn't. There was beauty in her defiance, a wildfire igniting the air around us that neither the past nor the oppressive weight of prejudice could extinguish. The world would judge her, but the choice to embrace the truth is hers alone, the waitress declared, her words echoing with clarity that I clasped Mia's hand tightly, feeling an electric jolt, the kind of connection that binds souls through shared pain and resolve. This is your new beginning, Mia. You have the power to shape your story. Mia's eyes met mine, and in that glance, I felt it, a new resolve fortifying her spirit. She turned to Clara, the shadows of doubt beginning to dissipate. I'm ready, let's bring her in. And just like that, she took a step forward, embracing the courage that had tethered itself within her, awakening hope. From the depths of despair. Clara clasped her hands, tears glimmering in her eyes. We can start to heal this family. Together. Lily leaned in closer, her fingers dancing through the air, eager to bridge the gap. We can do this. We can be happy again. In a massive leap, everything began to unravel and knit back together, the transformative power of love and vulnerability, the inherent connection of family stronger than any shadows that had plagued us. But even as the tide of emotions swirled and hope began to pour into our lives, I cast a glance toward the door. James stood by, his expression conflicted, still processing the chaotic manifestation of his own painful past colliding with our present fight against judgment. Mia, he breathed, urgency evident in his voice. What can I do to help? With her gaze steady, Mia took a bold step forward. You can support me, James. You can be a part of our new journey, if you truly want to be. I watched in awe as the shadows of the past began dissipating, like morning mist yielding to the sunlight. Perhaps, just perhaps, we could find acceptance not through hiding from our past but rather embracing it along with the light that emerged from it. The man stood there as spectre rendered powerless, and I understood, as his anger wilted in the face of our bonds, that the legacies of hurt could only be overcome with love that dared to dream. The clattering of plates and laughter around us resumed, a symphony of rebirth as our witness. A few patrons began to clap, bolstered by the courage we had summoned, and I felt weight upon weight lift from my spirit. In the end, forgiveness unfurled gently amidst the chaos. It was neither neat nor tidy, but it was beautiful. A new chapter wove itself into existence, and I dared to think that perhaps reconciliation wouldn't remain a fantasy but a tangible reality. And as the words hung heavy in the air, I felt a warmth envelop us, like the embrace of an old friend finally coming back home. Our eyes met in a shared understanding, a shared brokenness made whole again as we stepped forward into a light that felt like possibility anew. In this moment, I fully comprehended something I had long held at bay, that love was our richest legacy, and even amidst the darkness, hope would always find a way to usher in the dawn. And just like that, everything changed. Here we go, I murmured softly, squeezing Lily and Mia's hands as we unlocked the door to our future together, ready to rebuild the story that had just begun. Together, Mia echoed softly, and our words rose in a whirlwind of color against the muted grays of our past. Together, I affirmed, each heartbeat aligning with the unfolding beauty of the journey ahead. Together, Lily confirmed, pure conviction radiating from her tiny heart, signifying a promising and unbreakable bond woven with threads of resolve and love, and that evening, as we walked out of the diner, I could finally believe we were stepping not only into the world but well on our way to rebuilding not just a family but a legacy worth fighting for, a lesson engraved not just on our hearts, but on the fabric of life itself. Together, we were unstoppable. And sometimes, just sometimes, the heart's greatest adventure is learning to forgive, beginning with each other and the stories we hold as we weave threads anew.